You can learn a lot about a person in history by visiting their former home. Here in Tennessee, we've got the Hermitage, formerly occupied by Andrew Jackson, and down in Columbia, the home of President James Polk. Well, Susan Watson discovered a home formerly occupied by an important but lesser-known founding father in Hendersonville.
Rock Castle is the very first stone house built in Middle Tennessee by General Daniel Smith of Virginia, who came here with his wife Sarah and their two children in 1784. By 1785, they began construction on Rock Castle, which would take about the next 9 years to complete. And when it was completely finished, bear in mind, just to give you an idea and put it in context of how old we're talking about, this house was finished when George Washington was still president.
Director Tom Varenchik welcomed us to Rock Castle in period-appropriate clothing and shared his passion for 18th century history as we gained insight into the life of one of our state's founding fathers.
He is very important to the creation of Tennessee as a state. As a statesman, he held just about every political office imaginable, from a magistrate, justice of the peace, and all the way up to a two-term United States senator. While negotiating a peace treaty with the Cherokee in East Tennessee, there was a small village there called Tanase. And liked the name so much, he put it on the map as a county first, but liked it so much they put it on the map for the entire state. He created the very first map of Tennessee, and he named the state. And here we have the general's office, library, and study. You can just imagine the men that he met with in this house. And over here to your left, we have the general's actual desk, the very desk that he sat at as a United States Senator. We have the original title and deed to this property as issued by the state of North Carolina to General Smith, making him the sole owner. Underneath, a little peach brandy. The general had his own distillery here on the property from peaches he grew right on the plantation. He sold it by the gallon down in New Orleans under the Rock Castle brand.
Unfortunately, General Smith wasn't in his home office as much as his wife would have liked.
With General Smith being away so much as a statesman, as a surveyor, Miss Sarah, his wife, pretty much ran the plantation, raised the children, saw to the construction of the home, which was an ongoing project. And you don't really even have to read between the lines to read the frustration in her correspondence.
Sumner County, 20th July, 1793. Dear husband, I still find myself under the disagreeable necessity of conversing with you on paper or not at all. There's nothing amiss in the family. The building goes on, but slow ongoing, due to various causes. I must conclude with the love and duty of a wife, and with patience and anxiety wait and wish your return, until which time I shall say no more. Sally Smith.
Amidst overseeing construction and the demands of running a totally self-sufficient 3,000-plus acre plantation, there were often violent interruptions of their daily lives.
For 14 years, there was on-again, off-again Indian wars with the many tribes who didn't live here but came here for the hunting. The earliest part of this home is a blockhouse built for protection against a possible Indian attack. And that's where it began, and then it built forward.
The final result was an imposing structure by design. Ridge Point mortar emphasized the precise straight lines of the hand-hewn limestone blocks that compose the 22-inch thick walls. Inside, skilled craftsmen created floor-to-ceiling black walnut cupboards and trim, a reflection of the Smiths' culture, good taste, and wealth.
And welcome to the keeping room, often referred to as the keeping room because you kept your nicest and most beautiful things in this room. You kept company and you kept your fires going during the winter months. And in it, you impressed your guests with all the finest, most beautiful things that you had. The rules of the day of etiquette were that you weren't to brag about or talk about your money or your wealth, but there was nothing in the rules that says that you couldn't show it. We are now in the summer kitchen. You see a very large open hearth like that. That wasn't for heating, that was for cooking purposes. And you can see we have everything from ovens to Dutch ovens to toasters to gridirons and griddles, everything to create a proper 5-6 course meal.
Despite such a fine indoor kitchen, many meals were prepared outside, as reenactor Matt Ford demonstrates.
In the 18th century, your day would start between 4 and 4:30. Some of the cooks even had to go hunt their own game. If it was a small plantation or just a single house, you would go out and hunt your own food, and it'd come back, skin it, clean it, cook it, and have it ready to go. We're doing what they call a potluck lunch today. We've got a venison roast in the bottom. I've got potatoes on top of that, and I've got corn boiling on top of that.
The Smiths were related twice by marriage to their close friends and neighbors, Andrew and Rachel Jackson. Their son George married Tabitha Donelson, and their daughter Polly eloped with Samuel Donelson, thanks to some help from Old Hickory himself.
We are now in the room in which Polly, their daughter, who was christened Mary Ann, but always referred to as Polly, this is the room in which she eloped. We believe out that very window over there. In the middle of one spring night in 1796, 3 gentlemen on horseback came from the other side of the river with an empty horse for Polly. Somewhere in the room she had tied together a rope vine ladder. She tied off one end, threw the other end out the window, climbed down, and before her feet even hit the ground, Mr. Jackson swooped her up, put her on that empty horse, and away they rode to the other side of the river. He had a preacher waiting, and that night she and Samuel were married.
From stories of romance to politics to daily life on the frontier, Rock Castle is rich in history. And thanks to the ongoing efforts of people like Tom Varenchik and others who feel the importance of preserving our state's history, these stories will continue to fascinate and educate for generations to come.